Now, Gary Osborne is one of the most successful musical composers in the country. As a teenage songwriter, he had recordings with Nana Mouskouri and Val Doonican, to name just two. By the way, laugh he might, but they were huge stars of their day. At 17, he hit the US charts with On the Other Side by The Seekers. After a stint writing TV jingles and writing and performing hundreds of songs for brands like Pepsi, Shredded Wheat and Abbey National, remember them? He released two successful albums entitled Cues and Stepping Out, both produced by music legend Jeff Wayne. Gary went on to collaborate with Sir Elton John, co-writing all of the critically acclaimed Elton John album A Single Man, which I consider to be in the top 5 of all of the albums in Elton John's career, as well as multiple tracks on 21 at 33, The Fox, Jump Up and Leather Jackets. Gary and Elton composed some huge hits together, including Part-Time Love, Little Genie, which went to number 3 in the States, if my memory serves me, selling over 1 million copies. That was one of Elton's biggest hits since the early 70s in America, and the worldwide monster hit Blue Eyes in 1982. Gary was the principal lyricist on the best-selling concept album, Jeff Wayne's musical version of The War of the Worlds, which has sold over 15 million copies. And the ultimate collaborator that he is, Osborne has worked with Richard Kerr, Millie Jackson, Cliff Richard, the Righteous Brothers, and many more. Vocalist, lyricist, composer, and entrepreneur, this guy is the busiest man in pop. And I'm delighted to say that Gary Osborne joins me in the studio. Hi, Gary.
Mark, you know more about me than I do.
You could be my specialist subject on Mastermind.
You don't need me here, really.
Oh, I definitely do. Look, it's a privilege to have you in the studio. Did you always have a gift for words?
I would not be the right person to answer that question, but I always loved words. But what I principally loved was music. You know, I'm second generation. My father was a composer, musical director, arranger for people like Shirley Bassey and Eartha Kitt and Johnny Mathis and Judy. He conducted the last concert Judy Garland ever did.
Amazing.
And so I hung out as a kid with all the big stars of the day. Would be around my house, out the Alma Cogans and the Beverly Sisters and people that your viewers have never heard of. But the people who seemed to be having the most fun were the songwriters.
Yeah.
Lionel Bart was around the house a lot. The great Norman Newell, who wrote 16 songs for Shirley Bassey, and he wrote songs like More and Portrait of My Love. These were the guys who seemed to be enjoying themselves the most. So I decided that's what I want to do.
Why do you think they were enjoying themselves the most?
Maybe, I don't know, because I now know what tortured souls they were all along. They just seemed to be having a good time to me. Look, here, we were having a party, and Norman Newell left the party. He said, I'm going down the flat downstairs. Cyril Ornadell lived there. Cyril wrote If I Ruled the World. He was the conductor at Sunday night at the London Palladium. He wrote that musical, Pickwick. And
amazing.
He said, I'm going to go and write a song with Uncle Cyril. And he came back about an hour later, and I didn't think much of it. And a few months later, my dad said, that song, Portrait of My Love, which at that point was number 3 in the charts by Matt Monro, he said, that's the song that Norman and Cyril wrote that day. And I thought, he was only gone an hour.
Yeah.
I said, is he making a lot of money? I was about 8. Is he making a lot of money? He said, oh, yeah, he's making buckets of money. And that was the very moment I absolutely decided I wanted to be a songwriter. I thought, well, 1 hour's work and 24 hours partying, this is my life.
Well, yes, and singers that don't write songs are subject to whether or not they'll get the best material, and they've got to be in the charts, and then the writers will offer their work to them. Whereas if you're the writer, you're creatively in control. So I suppose it's the ultimate creative outlet, and you've got some power.
Well, that used to be the case. It isn't now. It isn't now. It's very hard to get a song covered at all now. Everyone wants an angle. The producers want a piece of the action. The artist wants their name on it, whether they wrote it or not. They've got their friends. It's so much more.
And you also have the spectre of songs with about 8 or 9 writing credits on, and that's too many, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, at that point, I remember a song on the Rita Ora first album, the one that was a hit. I don't know why she's so fantastically successful. The second album didn't do much, but it had 13 writers on it. Well, now, the thing about that is that could be a huge hit, but how much money would there be if you split it 13 ways? I know of guys who are writing hit songs that are driving Uber.
Yeah.
Because there's just no money. We used to be able to make money from an album track.
Amazing.
Get on a Anne Murray album or a Olivia Newton-John album or a Cliff Richard album. They'd have a hit record. It wasn't yours, but they'd have a hit record. People would buy the album. You'd make a decent living. Who buys an album now? When's the last time anyone bought an album?
Yeah.
You know, and they don't stream whole albums unless it's Adele or Coldplay or something. So, you know, you got on the album, fantastic news, but look at the check at the end of the year and there's nothing there.
No, and of course what's also sad is that album tracks get lost forever now, don't they? Whereas back in the day when you bought hard copy, whether it was vinyl, a cassette or a CD, you'd have to sort of tolerate some of the tracks you didn't enjoy to get to the ones you wanted to hear.
And then the ones you didn't enjoy, on that album, Moondance, it was like, Moondance? This is so jazzy. But now, of course, it's everybody's the biggest favourite of all.
So you were sort of forced to listen to it. Was it so Moondance by Van Morrison, never a single?
Not as far as I can tell, no, I don't believe so. It was just that, I mean, it was the title track, so it attracted attention, but people thought, well, hang on, this isn't the Van Morrison that we knew at that time. It was very jazzy.
Yeah.
Now it's a standard now, but we were forced to listen to stuff. We were forced to expand our horizons a little bit. And I don't want to sound like an old geezer who's moaning, but, you know, that's exactly what I am.
No, you're not at all. I think you've every right to comment on this because you've had such a contribution to popular music. I mean, you're a prolific guy. So lyrics, for example, do they come to you quite easily?
Well, eventually...
Are you a quick writer? Because Elton, who you work with, is notoriously quick.
Oh, he's incredible. So I went down to... I'm going to go write with him at 1:00. And I arrived there and he said, where have you been? I said, you said we were starting at 1. Oh, he said, I thought it was 12. I've got 5 tunes for you. 5 tunes he'd written in that hour. Those 5 tunes took me a couple of months to do all the lyrics for them. Because if you sing a verse... You sing the melody of the verse is repeated 4 times. That means you need 3 or 4 different sets of words. It's just a more complicated process to get the rhymes and the stresses and all that stuff in the right place, and to have a beginning and end and a middle, although not necessarily in that order. Probably that would beginning, end, middle probably wouldn't. Maybe that's where I've been going. That's why I haven't had any hits lately.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. I've been looking at your discography. You are far too self-deprecating. In fact, you know, Elton John, who is the biggest selling artist in the history of American popular music, solo artist, which is extraordinary, and a global superstar. But you've been part of that success because he's really only written with 3 people that I can judge, and that would be Bernie Taupin, yourself, and Tim Rice, predominantly. You know, a couple of collaborations.
Those great, I forget the name of the
Tom
guy.
Robinson. Tom Robinson.
Well, he wrote a song with Tom. He wrote a nice song with 2 songs with Tom.
Lee Hall. Lee Hall.
That's what I'm thinking of. Billy Elliot.
Sure, and that was great.
And he's expanded now to writing with more people. I mean, he had the Scissor Sisters hit that he wrote with them. I Feel Like Dancing. So but at the time I wrote with him, nobody had written with him except Bernie. It was quite a daunting task. You had to follow. So Bernie Taupin, of course, and Elton John collaborated for, I suppose, 7 or 8 years, from about, the late 60s to the late 70s. And they had a little, not necessarily a falling out, but a little break. It was more a geographical thing. I think they were a little... It's not quite like it is in the movie.
No.
Not much is quite like it was that's in the movie. But they never really fell out properly. But Bernie was living in L.A., London was Elton was very much London-based, and I think they needed a little time apart. And Lord knows it worked, because they've written so many wonderful things since then. But they never actually stopped
What I
writing.
liked about your work with Elton is that it was different to the output of Bernie talking
done in
Elton
a
John.
different way.
Done a different way. So let's get to that. So I think, am I right in thinking that you knew Reg from back in the day?
No, not really.
Well, when did you
Not
first
really,
meet
and I
him?
certainly
In the early 70s, though. Him about 71, 72.
I used to bump into him. We used to smile and nod.
Maida Vale.
At the Cromwellian Club, where he used to play with Bluesology.
Right.
And I'd see him there and that. But we really became friends when I wrote the lyric for Amoureuse, which was Kiki Dee's first hit. And Elton, it was my first hit. It was 1971, 2, I think. It was my first hit as a writer. It was Elton's first hit as a producer. It was Rocket Records' first hit as a label. And it was Kiki's first hit as an artist.
So it was a real Elton John production. And you were the lyricist on that song.
Yeah, and it was so exciting for all of us to have that hit, Kiki's first hit, my first hit, Elton's first as a producer. Believe me, he could not have been more exciting. So
did he sit there as a producer and actually, do all of
the knobs?
Yeah, I was going to say he was at the mixing desk.
We don't want to explore the knob twiddling any further than that.
No,
he
with your gift for language, that could be dangerous.
He co-produced with a guy called Clive Franks, who was his sound man. So Clive took care of the knobs mostly.
And then Elton took over.
The one knob that we all get to play with is the up and down, the gain. So even if you're not doing the EQs, you'll say, well, a little bit more of the bass drum, and you push that one up. In fact, my former brother-in-law Kenny Jones, from the Small Faces, the Faces, and the Who
you toured with.
When I briefly was in showbiz, I actually toured supporting the Faces, a UK tour. But they used to give him. He would say, a bit more of the bass. They'd give him a fader, especially. It wasn't connected to anything.
Brilliant.
But he'd move it up, and then he could hear the drum louder. They told him many years later, no, that was never connected to anything.
There you go. I reckon we've got faders like that here at GBNews just to keep me happy. But so therefore,
Mark, how do you work these hours? And how do you stay sober this late in the evening?
That's definitely the hardest bit, let me tell you.
Because this is the only time I'm doing it, and I'm already gagging for a drink.
Yeah, I tell you, it's thirsty work. But look, amazing guests like you. I
say that to all the boys.
I am so drunk on excitement to have you here because you've sold so many records. So what happened is that you were acquaintances / sort of professional colleagues on and off. How did the collaboration begin?
Well, we became really good friends, and my then partner Jenny, he's the godfather of my son Luke, and one night he just sat down at the piano and played a tune, and he said, "Do you fancy doing a lyric to that?" Well, I said, "What about Bernie?" He said, "Oh, Bernie's had a go at it, and he hasn't come up with anything." I think he may have been fibbing. But that fib enabled me, because Bernie was a friend of mine too, and I didn't want to get in the middle of a problem.
And it's a hard act to follow.
A very hard act. And I'd written The War of the Worlds, so I'd just finished writing The War of the Worlds, and I was fairly confident that I didn't think it was going to do 15 million. I didn't think it was going to be touring 44 years later.
Yeah.
In fact, I've got the tour dates here. I told Jeff Wayne I'd give it a plug.
Oh, well, then we really want to do this at the end of... Please pass that to me, because I want to know. In fact, I'll also ask Zoe...
You want tickets?
Zoe, well, I'm going to pay for tickets, let's be honest. I've got to pay my way. We don't do freebies here.
It's the 8th arena tour of this thing. If you would have told me 45 years ago when I was writing it that I'd even be talking about it now, let alone going to see the 8th arena tour. And it's on as an immersive experience somewhere in London, where it's all kind of holograms, and it's really wild.
Well, I mean, now we're on it. Let's talk about that. Now, you can get tickets to the War of the Worlds live on stage. All you have to do is go to livenation.co.uk or thewaroftheworlds.com. First of all, tell me about this latest show, this latest incarnation.
Well,
what can people expect?
Well, one thing they can expect is that Justin Hayward's back in it.
Brilliant.
Because Justin is the voice of... Well, originally it was Richard Burton.
Yeah.
But in the last 4 or 5 tours, it's been Liam Neeson. Because we didn't have the technology back then, which we do have now. So we have Liam Neeson in a full-body hologram.
Right.
I mean, it's quite incredible. He has a little fight. I don't know who's playing the part. Jason Donovan was playing it last time, and they have this little fight on stage. A fight with a hologram. It's quite amazing. It's just, I tell you what, it's just. I have very little to do with. I had nothing to do with putting this show together. My work was done 45 years ago. They very kindly gave me tickets. Jeff pretends to ask my advice in terms of casting, but then he goes and gets... But he's had some fantastic people. Marty Fapello has been in it, Russell Watson. Jason Donovan did 3 tours in 2 different roles. He just... 26 violins, a 10-piece rock band, Martian fighting machine that comes out of the sky and shoots. So
what do you put the enduring success of the War of the Worlds down to? Because it is the most spectacular show, isn't it? It's like a rock opera.
It truly is. I really have no idea. When we were writing it, I thought, we might get a kind of a cult following, maybe do, 250,000 copies or something like that over a period of time. And but it went straight in the charts. And stayed there for 3 years, and dropped out for a week and went back in again. I think that Forever Autumn was a big part of its success here, and of course the wonderful Eve of the War, bum bum bum, doodle doodle, which is iconic. Torvill and Dean danced to it, and it's unfortunately the words. Jeff took the words for that right out of H.G. Wells's book, so I don't get a piece of it. But apart from that very tragic story, I'm so proud to have a little piece of that history, that legendary.
Well, yeah, because I mean that's the point. You've had so many hits. It's not all about your collaboration with Elton. You are a natural collaborator. You just obviously enjoy having that spark with other people. And you are a lyricist, particularly. You're a particularly successful lyricist. Why are lyrics important in a song?
Well, because you can't whistle the words. I mean, if you.
And does it matter? I mean, can they be any old lyrics? Can it just be "Hello, darling, I love you. You're great"?
I don't know.
Why do the lyrics matter?
There are various schools of thought about that. I mean, I truly believe that the tune is more important than the words. It's just that the words are more complicated and take longer to do. So we get 50-50 on it. A lot of people say that the words are more important. You might think with Dylan songs, maybe the words are more important, but what fantastic tunes he wrote or writes.
Yeah.
So it's interestingly, the difference you spotted between my songs with Elton and Bernie's, apart from the fact that Bernie had written so many more of them, is that Bernie's all came words first. So he would write basically a poem, and Elton would turn it into a song.
Which actually is quite unconventional, isn't it?
Yes, it is quite unconventional. I mean, I would say 75% of the songs are written the other way around, the way I work, which is you give me a tune, and I try to put into words what I think the tune is trying to tell me. Obviously, if I hear a song like Blue Eyes, I'm not going to write a party anthem. It's obviously going to be romantic. It's going to be maybe, I don't know, nostalgic or wistful, or the tune kind of dictates what you want to say.
Well, that's right. I mean, so many songs like Little Genie, which was I think a number 3 hit in America.
It was 2 million seller.
2 million. There you go.
It was a month at number 3. I have to point that out because I have never had a number 1.
But number 3 in America that would have been the late 70s.
Yeah.
78, 79?
79.
And this was Elton's biggest hit since Candle in the Wind or something in America.
It also stayed on the chart longer than any other song that he's ever had.
And then Blue Eyes, of course, a monster.
It went up very slowly,
right, yeah.
And it came down very slowly. And of course, in terms of sales, that's much better than going in at number 1 and dropping like a stone.
Yeah, which actually happens these days.
Well, these days, yeah. I mean, it's such a different world. My first hit, Amoureuse, I think...
Lovely song.
It only made number 13 first time around, and it sold over 250,000 copies.
Amazing.
Now, my last hit, by a kid called Little Chris, a song called Checking It Out, that made number 3 in the charts and sold 30,000 copies. and it made number 3.
Speaks volumes.
And that was over 10 years ago. So now, I mean, you could probably get to number 1 with 15 copies, you know.
So you had this collaboration, A Single Man album with Elton John, which also sold a lot of copies as an album, didn't it?
Yes, it did. Yeah.
And then you contributed tracks to all those other albums I mentioned. Blue Eyes was huge. I mean, did Blue Eyes change your life?
Well, inasmuch, I just to point out that it was one of those 5 tunes he gave me that day when he gave me 5 tunes. And when he would give me so many tunes, and often I would do the lyric, and before I'd even shown it to him, he would say, oh, I've lost interest in that. So, meanwhile, I've spent 2 weeks writing a lyric. So, I'm not going to argue with him. He's lost interest. But I would try to work out which song he was going to lose interest in. So I didn't do it. And I figured Blue Eyes, too corny, too old-fashioned. So I did the other 4. And eventually, he sent me from Montserrat, he sent me a cassette. Yes, cassettes. Tell the folks what they are.
Explain that to the teenagers.
Yeah. A cassette of the back. He actually had gone in and cut it, but without any words. And I immediately thought, I better do this quick, because if he can send it to me, he can send it to Bernie or Tim or somebody more talented than me. So that was the quickest one I ever wrote. It was about 2 hours, and telexed it back to him. You'll have to explain what telex is now.
Exactly. It's a bit like almost like a fax, wasn't it?
I forgot what the question was.
Well, look, you basically, did it change your life?
I never liked it much until it bought the house.
So it paid for a house?
One
song?
Did pay for the house, yes. But those days are long gone now.
And Elton as a person, his temperament, his career. Tell me about Elton. The Elton that you know, your friend.
I know is the funniest guy, the most generous guy, the easiest to work with. Of all the people I've collaborated with, I've really worked with some wonderful people. Each has their quirks, but as Don Black says, at the piano they're pretty much all the same. But they're not quite the same, because nobody is quite like Elton, because he just trusts you. He doesn't take the lyric and go, well, I didn't like this word, I didn't like that word, oh, well, why don't you do this one? He just gets the lyric and he goes in, well, he did, until he sacked me. He just goes in and sings it. And he didn't make a big fuss. I said, well done, that's brilliant. Oh, I love that line. No, he did it. Ultimate compliment of just simply doing it. He once asked for one word to be changed.
And that was probably just for the flow of the melody or something?
He didn't like the word strikes in Little Genie. He didn't like that word. And I said, but it works. And he said, no, can you change that word? Well, to change that word, you had to change the line. To change the line, you had to change the whole verse. So I'd only spent a week writing the original lyric. It spent a month trying to rewrite this one word. And finally, he said, we're going to do Little Genie today. I said, great, I got the new lyric. He says, OK, I've got used to the old one.
No.
So that's the line in there. You take it where it strikes and you give it to the likes of me.
Oh, my goodness. And on that lyrical note...
On that bombshell.
Look, clock's against us, only a couple of seconds left, but clearly things move on, and a creative temperament like Elton John, he thinks, well, I'm going to collaborate with this person, I'm going to collaborate with that person. He did, you guys moved on, but you made a lot of great songs together.
We never fell out.
No, you stayed friends.
We never fell out.
And you were still more or less in touch.
The record company asked him... He wasn't selling as many as he had in his heyday.
Right.
Remember, he had come out, and unfortunately, although the coasts were selling, Middle America weren't buying him so much. And David Geffen thought that it would be a good idea to just get the original band, the original producer, the original... You can understand, there's a logic to it.
Yeah.
And that was it. But we're still chums. When we meet, we have a hug and a kiss, and...
Well, I'm glad to hear it.
No tongues.
As I've said, never say never.
Well, OK.
I will repeat. I mean, look, I love all of you. The War of the Worlds is something I was listening to today, and it's just so dramatic and so lyrical and so powerful. A Single Man, one of my favourite Elton John albums, and I'm an expert on Elton John, by the way. It was my specialist subject on Mastermind.
Oh, my God.
So I know my onions.
Was I a question?
Well, I think there was a question about A Single Man, and I think it was about who produced it, and I've forgotten who that was, but it was not
Elton and Clive.
What? There you go. You see, I probably should have known that one.
It's been fantastic here. We love this show, you know.
Really?
My wife last night said to me, honestly, mind you were on all night last night.
Yeah, I did about 12
hours. We were
hours.
watching you downstairs, and we went upstairs, and you were still on. And she said to me, what did we watch before GM News?
Oh, really?
GB News, whatever it's called.
GB
What did we
News.
watch before this channel? And I think it was Sky News. But most of the good guys from that are now on this channel, so I don't have to go back.
Well, look, that's very high praise. Do come and see us again. Maybe you'd like to join our panel in future. Because
I would love to join
to hear...
if I can stay sober long enough.
Well, I know. We might provide you with a gin or tonic or two, because you are A-list talent. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do now. We can't play out with an Elton John, Gary Osborne composition, but I could just quote you a couple of words from one of my all-time favourite songs, which is called Shine On Through, which is, I believe, the first track on A Single Man. Oh, my love, I have cursed the stars above that lead my heart to you. But as hard as I try, still my love will not die, and the stars still shine on through. Lyrics by Gary Osborne. There you go. Butchered by Mark Dolan.
Yeah, absolutely.